Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. So today I'll be talking about chapter 10, which is infectious diseases. And also under this chapter, we'll talk about antibiotics and antibiotic resistance. So this chapter requires you to remember and memorize a lot of small details. So I'll try to make this video as engaging as possible. Maybe break down this video into two to three smaller videos so it's more easier for you to follow along. And also I believe that the October-November session exams are going to be starting soon. So all the best if anyone is giving those exams. Um, I hope you do well. So let's begin. So the first thing we'll talk about is the important terms which we need to know in this chapter. So first of all, how do we define disease? So diseases are usually illness, or we can also talk about them as a disorder, which leads to poor health, and they are generally associated with a set of symptoms. And infectious disease is basically a disease which are um, caused by organisms which are known as pathogens. And if it's spread by pathogens, they're known as transmissible diseases. So non-infectious diseases are long-term degenerative diseases which are not caused by pathogens, and they can be genetic, inherited, for example, sickle cell anemia or deficiency diseases. And these deficiency diseases, they are caused by a lack of a certain type of vitamin, for example. And we can describe an outbreak in terms of the location and how fast it's spreading. So, for example, endemic is if the disease itself is contained within a location. Epidemic is there's a sudden increase, and then pandemic is obviously occurring throughout the entire world, like the situation that we're currently in due to COVID-19. So under this chapter, we'll have to talk about cholera firstly. And cholera's causative agent is Vibrio cholerae, and it's an bacteria. So the bacteria will enter through the mouth, and then it will pass through the stomach if it's not acidic enough. So our stomach has hydrochloric acid, and if it does pass the stomach, it will go to the small intestine, specifically the wall of the small intestine, and then it will multiply over there and secrete a toxin which is known as collagen. And then collagen disrupts the osmotic balance through a sequence of events which we don't really need to know, but it just disrupts the osmotic balance, leading to water and ions to enter the lumen from the cells of the small intestine. So it is a foodborne and waterborne disease. So you can also say it follows a fecal to oral route. So how is it spread? So it spreads when an infected person contaminates a water supply, or they handle utensils and food without washing their hands thoroughly. So when other people use it, it spreads to them. Flies can spread it when they come into contact with feces or raw sewage, and then they come to contact with food or utensils which are used by humans. It can also be spread through seafood. So, for example, fish or shellfish, they're often eaten raw, and sewage is pumped into the sea. So the cholera bacteria can concentrate in the seafood. You can also get cholera from drinking contaminated water or eating contaminated food, like the first point which you're talking about. And usually there's a sudden increase in cholera after a natural disaster, for example, an earthquake. So what happens is the clean water, for example, water pipes, they can break, causing clean water to be contaminated by water and sewage. So when they mix, and then the bacteria will concentrate within the contaminated water, and then they're consumed after that. So cholera, the site of the action, as we just talked, it will pass through the stomach, and then it will reach the wall of the small intestine, and obviously the symptoms, because water and ions are going to be entering the lumen, and then they will eventually be excreted. So it will be diarrhea and also dehydration. Usually the treatment doesn't really require much. It usually is just oral rehydration therapy. So what happens is they give a person a solution of glucose and salts, which is basically absorbed by the body. Antibiotics are usually not given. So what happens when you give oral rehydration therapy, or give a solution of glucose? So basically when glucose enters the body, and it will diffuse into the wall of the small intestine to be reabsorbed back in the body, right? So what happens is it will carry ions along with it. So it counteracts the loss of ions and water. So how can we prevent cholera? So we can obviously have better sewage treatment. We can invest in drainage facility and better clean water supply. We can educate people not to use sewage for irrigation, and also to educate them not to drink or use contaminated water without purifying it before. You can also administrate a vaccine. This provides a short-term protection. So this is usually done before people visit places where cholera is endemic. So we'll talk about malaria in the next video. Like I said, I'd like to break down this chapter into multiple videos. So I hope you found this small video helpful in understanding how cholera is spread and how the features of the bacteria. So let's talk about malaria in the next video. See you in the next video.